So outgrowing location is inherently tied to the need of more hours and workers. At the NCA short course on communication centers, they emphasize the needs of students and accommodating what students need in this resource as far as scheduling hours go. Now currently, as Jenna said, we have some limited hours in the evening, 20 hours a week, but this we find is not as accommodating to students who are trying to get help with their presentations throughout the year. 3 other centers on campus dwarf the OCC in this regard. If you refer to the handout that you have, there's a chart located in there comparing the hours and the workers of all 4 centers. A quick summation of this, all the other centers aside from the OCC at least have 2 tutors on at any given time, allowing for multiple consultations at once, and at least have 40 hours a week available to students. Comparing that to the OCC, there's only 1 tutor available at any given time, and it's only open 20 hours a week, half of the least comparing to other centers. Students take notice of this. In our survey, 12% said they would be more likely to use the resource if there were more people and more hours available to choose from. The faculty, 15.6% of them to be precise, said that more hours would be beneficial in helping their students schedule appointments. Compared with similar schools, they've noticed an improvement as they've added more hours and workers. For example, Allegheny College started off with 5 tutors and were able to accommodate about 100 students per year. When they bumped that up to 10 consultants with increase in budget, they were able to accommodate 300 students the next year with those changes. Last year, the OCC served 369 consultants, this is also in a chart in your handout there, which yielded about 645 individual clients. Now this does not accommodate for overlap if people made multiple sessions throughout the semester. Now this is roughly 35% utility from the college student body, 35% of people not accommodating for overlap. Now if speaking and writing are going to be on equal par as something we want to emphasize here in Wittenberg, then the resources should be equally represented in the amount of students that they're serving. And there's currently a discrepancy. This semester alone, at the end of Fall 11, the Writing Center will be capping out at around 1,800 sessions for this semester alone, which is 100% accounting a session for each student on campus. And again, that's not accounting for overlap, people making multiple sessions. So, in summation of this section, more workers would be greater representation not only of consultants from different majors, but of different majors coming in to get help with their presentations. Meeting increase in demands with more hours and consultants will be in addressing the issues of rebranding and speaking requirement that we'll be talking about here in a moment. And the gradual process would be implemented to where students would be brought on successively each year, a little more consultation as the OCC is utilized more. To finalize my section, we'll be talking a little bit about rebranding. Currently the brand can be confusing. Not a lot of students know what the OCC is right off the cuff. And it can be restricting as far as oral communication center as what students can actually use this space, specifically with the communication majors. The common objectives need to be balanced with a service to students and faculty overall. So at the launch, when Dr. Wagner launched this project, the emphasis wanted to be on listening as well as speaking, so we included that communication title. We did wanted to avoid the talking head stereotype, as well as avoid any association with the speaking and English department that was available at that time. When the OCC reopened in 2008 under Dr. Brose, she seriously considered renaming the location to Speaking Center. She wanted this because of a bigger role that the center might play on campus and a separation from the communication department dependency. She thought that the clarity of this name would outweigh the initial limited understanding of what that center might be able to offer. We see this communication of purpose and understanding through title in Muriel Harris's article in a Writing Center journal that's published. And she said that the idea of making discourse sticky includes taking the core principles of what services you're offering the student body and incorporating them as succinctly as possible. And what's more succinct and to the point than Speaking Center, whereas OCC has that ambiguity and confusion. So we were just curious what's most common. We did a quick survey of the directory of the National Association of Communication Centers directory. 43% of the centers there had speaking in the title, 52% had communication, and 5% had both. So it was pretty even keel. However, more often than not, those titles with communication in them were somehow tied or reliant upon the communication department there at that school. So if we're striving for a divorce from the department, we would need to switch the brand to something more along the lines of the speaking requirement. Other schools, such as Mary Washington College, sees the speaking requirement affiliation as more strong than what they would want to emphasize with the communication department, which is what we're striving for here. And Davidson says they quote-unquote need to get the word out. This not only comes through in the title, but also the clarity and the publicity that they engage with their student body, the faculty, the administration. The student survey said 17% of students would use the OCC more often if there were better promotion, outreach, and advertising efforts. This is the second most common response after actually having to be required by a professor to go visit that would utilize these students' use of the OCC. Now, at NCA, Jenny and Dana can attest to this, many of the larger schools don't use publicity as an emphasis, but that's because they're overbooked. So many students are utilizing that space. So if we want to get students more engaged in the speaking requirement and getting them to use this resource, we would definitely want to take advantage of tools that are already in place, such as our Facebook page, the QR scanner, social media on campus, and of course, campus-wide email. The biggest thing that we can emphasize from all of our research is that the faculty need to be on board for these changes to occur. Hannah will talk a little bit more about incorporating a requirement for speaking into the curriculum, but suffice to say, rebranding and publicity would bring in the faculty as well as students to be on board with the OCC or the Speaking Center, and what those goals might be achieved and how those might come about. Currently, just a subcommittee of 2 consultants work on publicity. Ideally, we would want a director to take over that, not only to leverage partnerships throughout campus, but to orchestrate growth in programs, as well as to communicate and carry out the mission of the OCC. Thank you for hearing me out. Now I'll pass it along to Taylor, who will talk about why we need to keep the OCC an independent resource from any department or other resource on campus.
To piggyback off what Tyler just talked about, he mentioned a few times the importance of a divorce from the department. We feel that this is one of the changes that can be implemented immediately, initiating a small yet crucial change in revamping the OCC and becoming an independent resource. We came up with 3 main points as to why it's important for a divorce from the department. The first is that it shows that the OCC is not just for the communication department. Since reopening in 2008, there's been an unwanted tie between the department and the Oral Communication Center. We feel that this tie is in part due to the name OCC, which it has the word communication in it, which Tyler talked about a bit of the importance of rebranding. But we also feel that it is a contribution of resources from the department despite their reluctance. Also, as Jenna talked about in regards to the mission, Whitberg focuses on the wholeness of a person. However, by having a tie with the department, it's almost saying we're delivering the message that we're becoming specialized in the sense that the center is just for communication students, where we know all students need to learn how to effectively speak. As seen as the student survey, 22% of the students who attended the OCC were required by the comm department. 10% were from the English department, 7% business, 5% religion, and 51% other. Excuse me. The rest of the majors are illustrated in the packet that you have, but as you can see, the communication department does take up a large amount of that space, and we need to change this and implementing campus-wide stress on speaking skills. The second point is we need to stress the importance of getting support from all departments. This just means more faculty use and stress the importance of speaking skills. We follow the perception is reality idea with this one. If we are tied to the department, other faculty members will feel that since it is tied to the communication department, they don't need to find it necessary to implement this in all departments. We need to stress the speaking skills across the curriculum and not just in the communication department. Specifically, in our faculty survey, we asked how many professors had required OCC attendance by students before presentations, and surprisingly, 68.8% of faculty responded no, they have never required attendance. However, on the other hand, in our student survey, we asked how to increase student participation, and they said they would attend if required by more professors or required by more professors to give speeches in class. This allows us to conclude that if we drop the tie with the communication department, more faculty will push the importance of speaking skills across the curriculum. And lastly, one of the most important points is we need additional courses for communication students. The communication department as a whole is already stressed in terms of resources, and they've tried to push these resources as far as possible. But in fact, at the end of this registration term, every seat was filled by the end of enrollment, and that's pretty impressive for a department to fill every single seat. Currently, Dr. Cunningham is an academic advisor, and she had to drop a course to not be considered an overload. So, and because of the high demand for the major and the increasing numbers of majors and minors, the department simply cannot afford to lose this course. If divorced, the department will be able to add another course to offer to their majors and minors. So, in summary, a divorce is needed so the communication department can drop the unwanted tie with the OCC, allowing students and faculty to feel that the OCC is not just for communications students, while allowing to promote departmental growth with a strong focus on their internal majors and minors. We feel that this will place an emphasis on the speaking skills across campus. Now Hannah is going to talk about speaking skills and implementing these skills in the Wittenberg education.